I know you talked candidly about it when we brought it up the first time, John, and one of the things you said was they're not bringing in 31-year-old Stephen Tulloch to be a backup. After hearing Doug Peterson today, do you still feel that way?
I do. I think Doug didn't rule it out. He said that's not the plan for now. I think the biggest issue is they want to get Stephen here and see how healthy he is, because you're talking about a guy who's coming off an ACL tear in 2014, and then he had off-season ankle surgery. So there's a couple issues that have to get over that hump, and I think if they get him in here and if he's healthy, I think the best way for this team to go is to have Stephen Tulloch in the middle, Jordan Hicks on the weak side, Nigel Bradham on the strong side, and Michael Kendricks on the bench. And I think that's the way it's going to go.
So Tulloch, we talked earlier to Michael Rothstein, who covers the Lions, and he basically suggested, look, this guy can still play if you use him the right way. In other words, he said he's not the linebacker he used to be. He used to be one of the best three-down linebackers in the league, but now you got to get him off the field. So is there a way that all four guys can stay happy?
I don't know if there is, because, again, you're talking about specifically Michael Kendricks is the guy I'm looking at. He's used to being a starting player, and it's going to be a tough pill to swallow if he's asked to go to the bench and play on special teams, which is one of the issues with Tulloch as a backup linebacker. And the fact that he can't play special teams at this stage of his career. I asked Doug about it today. He kind of hemmed and hawed and said he'd like to get him on one. Well, that's not backup linebackers. Joe Walker was on all four before he went down with his torn ACL. So that tells you what kind of workload a backup linebacker is supposed to have when it comes to special teams. And you're just not going to have that with Tulloch. But what he is, and that's correct, he's still a very good two-down linebacker, and he's still very good defending the run. I understand Jordan Hicks is going to be the only three-down linebacker on this team, meaning he's the one who's going to be on the field even if they go to dime packages. So he's still going to be the guy who wears the helmet. They can converse with Jim Schwartz and have the plays. But the beauty of that is Stephen Tulloch, nobody in this world knows how to play a Jim Schwartz defense better than Stephen Tulloch. So it's almost you get the best of both worlds in the fact that you have a guy playing middle linebacker that can get everybody lined up, and then you have Jordan Hicks with the helmet where it can communicate with the defensive coordinator, and he can kind of still learn on the go as the three-down linebacker. So I think at some point, if he's healthy, I think it's going to work out well for the Eagles.
What does this say? I mean, does this just a simple, hey, they just needed depth, this is the guy they went after, he was available? Or does this say that Jim Schwartz has a lot of say here and that, hey, the Eagles feel they're closer than maybe some, onlookers believe, that he thinks, hey, if we get this guy, that could be a difference maker for us from being a 8-8 team and maybe makes us a playoff team?
No, I don't think it said that. I think the realization, as I said in the past, if it were up to Jim Schwartz, Stephen would have been here 3 weeks ago. And it wasn't up to him. And the reason he's here now is because the team needed bodies at linebacker after Joe Walker went down. They were very high on Joe Walker. I know he's a rookie 7th-round pick, but if he was still healthy, I don't think Tulloch would be here. So that injury opened up a door, and Schwartz then kind of said, look, we need something. We need to move forward at this position. I'm really, really comfortable with this guy. I'd like to bring him in here. I think that's how things shook out, because, as I said, if it were up to him, strictly up to him, Tulloch would have been here probably the day after the Lions cut him.
Significance here in terms of making this defense better. Do you look at this team, you look at this as, now I don't want to say an embarrassment of riches here, but I mean, was this a Was this something that they had to do, that they had to get Stephen Tulloch in here, or were they already going to be a pretty good defense?
I think they were already going to be a pretty good defense. I think that was certainly going to be the strength of their team. And I think if Stephen wasn't here, that would still be the case. I think what it enables you to do, if they do it, remember, this is still a work in progress, and we'll see. He's scheduled to be at the NovaCare Complex today. We'll see how healthy he is. I think Jordan Hicks' long-term future in this league is a weak side linebacker. So I think that's his natural position. I think that's your best linebacker, and you would move him to the best position for his skill set. So I think that's only a positive, both in the short term and the long term, because you get the guy situated where he should be, and you sort of have an upgrade, at least as far as understanding what Jim Schwartz wants from his defense from Stephen Tulloch.
All right, John McMullen here, 97.3 ESPN.com. Peterson said today no plans for Hicks to move. How long's that last?
I think about 48 hours, and I think the only real, as I said, why he said that is because there is a concern from a health standpoint. And if there's nothing left, there's nothing left. We saw it with D'Amico Ryans. D'Amico Ryans is a very similar player to Tulloch in the fact that he was a veteran guy who understood how to play defense. He understood how to get everybody lined up, but he was just done physically last year. After his second Achilles injury, he was flat out done physically. And that's what happens in this league. And if he shows up and he's not capable of doing it physically, well, then Jordan Hicks stays at middle linebacker and nothing really changes. But I think if Tulloch is healthy enough to where it can still be that two-down player that a lot of people think he can be, I think then things shift. And I think what Doug was doing there was sort of hedging his bets and waiting to see what Stephen Tulloch shows up.
John McMullen's with us here. I want to shift to, I wasn't here last week for Dorial Green-Beckham. He played minimal, 2 plays in the game, but he said he anticipates getting reps with the one. My question for you to lead things off with, because I'm sure the listeners heard your opinion on the move last week, which I didn't hear, and I'll get that in a second, but do you believe Beckham is a lock to make the team?
If you're saying 100%, I won't go that strongly, but I would say it's 95% just from his talent alone. It's such an upgrade at a bad position on this team. Even if he struggles picking up the offense early, and obviously he only has a couple weeks, even if it doesn't show the best personality, and Doug said he had a great personality today, willing to work, willing to listen. He's such an upgrade physically for this particular unit. They're going to put him on the roster and hope they can bring him along, develop him, and turn him into an NFL-level receiver, because I always point back to, I think Tom Lemming is one of the best recruiting analysts in the country. He said early about DGB, he was the most physically imposing wide receiver since Randy Moss. So that's what you're talking about from a skill set perspective. And obviously that might be one of the Eagles, not might be, is one of the Eagles' weakest positions. And when you bring a talent like that, it's hard to say there's going to be 5 other guys that are going to beat him out.
Yeah, let's look at this position, because I'm saying I got him as the 3rd best chance to make this team right now behind Matthews and Aguilar. Those guys are making it. They're not getting cut. I would say he's 3rd, Randall, Givens, and Turner. And am I forgetting a guy in there somewhere? No. I mean, that's 6. So you got
Josh Huff.
Oh, Josh Huff, yes. So Huff, Givens, Randall, Turner, I would say fighting for 2 spots.
Yeah, I mean, I've said from the start, I think Josh Huff is making this team for a number of different reasons. Because
okay, so Huff's in. That's 4. So you got Givens, Randall, and Turner for 1 spot, right?
Yes, or 2. They could keep 6, but you would think there's not enough talent in that organization right now at that position to be able to keep 6. But you never know, depending how things shake out.
So then let me ask you. Let me ask you this then, John. I get, and I'm not knocking on Turner. He's obviously had a very nice camp and played 2 nice games. If he makes the team, is he legitimately getting playing time ahead of anybody?
I don't think so. Not at this stage. And I don't think a lot of people think he's a fait accompli to make this team. I'm not in that camp. I think certainly he's going to make the practice squad. I don't think there's any question about that. But understand, after they made, and I don't know if you know this, Mike, but after they made the DGB trade, they tried to get Rasheed Bailey back on waivers, but they lost out to, I believe, San Diego got him first. So that was even after. And that kind of tells you their thought process, that they just don't think they have enough talent at that position. Because they not only wanted to bring in one body, they wanted to bring in multiple bodies. So as we get to the cut down, especially the 53, from 75 to 53, don't be surprised if they bring in another body at wide receiver, if they like somebody from another organization, because these guys just haven't impressed.
Okay, so
and that includes Randall, Givens, Huff, and even Aguilar. You're right about Aguilar because he's first-round pick. That's going to save him, but he should be in that conversation.
And Beckham had a better year than Aguilar did last year. For all the people who were saying, well, the Titans gave up on him, I don't see how anybody can criticize that deal. I mean, here's a guy that had a better year than Aguilar did.
Oh, by far. It was a great trade from the Eagles' standpoint. The reasons why it was cut by Tennessee had to do with off-the-field stuff, and not the stuff that he got in trouble for in college, but Mike Mularkey had wanted him to get in better shape. He didn't like his work ethic. He didn't like the way he went about his craft, and those are serious red flags, and you need to take them seriously. But as far as the talent standpoint goes, look, from the Eagles' standpoint, and how he kind of explained it after the trade, because of all the draft picks that went back to Cleveland in the Carson Wentz trade, he admitted, hey, we're going to have to gamble a little bit now and again to get some talent in this organization.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about Green-Beckham, here's a guy who, if he didn't have the issues in Missouri, if he didn't have the issues in college, he would have been a top 15 pick. So that's the kind of talent they brought into this organization, and they need to take chances like that. It's just the reality of where they are.
Well, and they have. They've taken a chance on him. They've taken a chance on Ruben Randall. I don't say Givens is a bad guy, but they took a chance that he can reunite and reconnect with Sam Bradford. So I would say Beckham's in just because of all the possibilities. You know, hey, let's see if this guy can just go out there and play. What do we have to lose? You may say, okay, it's not a home run. Who gets the last spot? If there's only keeping 5, which Andy Reid kept 5 last year in Kansas City, so that's what I'm going off of. Who are the 5 guys, and who's the odd man out?
I think the odd man out would be Randall. I think Givens would make it because even though he hasn't shown much in games and really practice, he has the history, the rapport with Sam Bradford, and he brings a trait that nobody else does, and that's his ability to stretch the field with some legitimate deep speed. So, and he could help on special teams a little bit more than Randall. So I think out of everybody, the Beckham trade, it really hurt Ruben Randall the most because he was going to make this team before that trade, and I'm not sure that's the case now.
That's pretty crazy because, here's a second-round guy who has 20 career touchdowns, John. How many Eagles on this team, have average 5 touchdowns a year, have 20 total touchdowns, and this guy's going to get cut over guys who were very unproven. And that's not to say that he's not Jerry Rice.
No. But he is a better player than Nelson Aguilar. But they're not going to cut Nelson Aguilar because they don't want to do that. And even though it's a different regime, they don't want to do that in his second year, even though Randall's performed better. But what hurts, once you start getting, it's the same thing we talked about at linebacker, and the reason why I think Tulloch is ultimately going to be a starter. once you're down the depth chart as the 5th or 6th receiver, or in the case of the Eagles, 4 or 5 if they don't keep 6, you have to help on special teams. And that's where guys like Josh Huff and Chris Givens, in my opinion, have an edge on Reuben Randall because he's just not going to be able to help on special teams. And you're right. I think the 3 main receivers on this team, as soon as they get Green-Beckham up to speed, it's going to be Matthews, Aguilar, and DGB.
It's a lot of talent right there if they can get it together. I mean, let me ask you your quick opinions, first impressions of Green-Beckham since he's been here. I mean, does he seem like a guy who is determined, or does he seem aloof? I mean, what do you make of him getting traded here in his first week in Philadelphia?
No, I think he knows it's a second chance for him. It's a new opportunity. It's fresh. He realized things weren't going the right way that they should have been in Nashville.
Does he blame himself for that?
No, not to that point. He hasn't really, and he's a young kid, so you don't expect that. But we've seen it around the league in the past. He certainly doesn't look out of shape. I mean, the day the trade was made, I got a couple texts from people in Nashville who said, well, Archie was upset with his conditioning. He certainly doesn't look out of shape. Now that can, be deceiving at times. But he certainly doesn't look like a guy carrying extra weight or anything of that nature. He was very productive as a rookie receiver. In fact, if you look at, I think there were 7 receivers drafted ahead of him last year, and the only one that performed better was Amari Cooper out in Oakland. So it's not like he wasn't showing some signs on the field. So to me, it was clearly a personality problem between the head coach and the player. And we can only assume, generally, you're going to give the benefit of the doubt to the older man, the coach, who's supposed to be mature, but that's not always the case. And you have to take Doug at his word at this point. He says he's got a great personality. He's willing to learn, willing to work, and we'll see how it shakes out. But from a talent standpoint, I keep going back to that. It is a huge upgrade for the Philadelphia Eagles.
No doubt. 17 yards a catch last year, 4 touchdowns, just 32 catches, 5 starts, but not a great offense in Tennessee last year. Does he or did Doug say that he expects to get some time with the ones? Do you think he's going to get first-team reps this week?
Yeah, I do. They're going to – remember, Doug, you weren't here, but Doug said he wasn't going to play in Pittsburgh, and he barely played, but he did throw him out there for a couple plays. I think they want to look at him. They've seen how badly that position has struggled without Jordan Matthews. They're certainly not obtuse to that fact, and that's why they went out and got him, and that's why they tried to bring Rasheed Bailey back. They know they need an influx of talent at that position, so they want to get him up to speed as quick as possible.
This is like the biggest boom or bust group I think I can ever imagine.
Yeah, I mean,
you got a first rounder.
You know what you have in Jordan Matthews. You know what you have.
Yeah, but you got a first rounder. You got 3 second rounders and a third rounder, and Givens is a fourth rounder. So you got a 1, 3 2s, and a 3, and they still stink.
Well, that's true. And you look at Josh Huff and Nelson Aguilar specifically, because those are the 2 guys that were supposed to be cores of this group moving forward, and they both just haven't. They haven't done it. There's no other way to say it. And I know people still have some hope for Nelson Aguilar because it was just one season, but I got to tell you, Mike, I'm at practice every day. It hasn't been much improvement. It doesn't look much better. He still can't get off press coverage at all.
Disappointing.
And it's only going to get more difficult when you're facing top-tier corners all the time. And then I think he lacks confidence because if you saw Pittsburgh, he makes a great catch. And 10 seconds later, they go right back to him on the next play, and he drops one. So I think he's struggling with his confidence, and I'm not sure he's ever going to live up to being a first-round pick. And Josh Huff, look, he's a better kick returner than he is a wide receiver, and that sums him up.
John McMullen's here. Give me the latest with Lane Johnson.
Well, the Eagles have shut down when it comes to Lane Johnson. I think they're waiting for the NFL, and Doug is asked about it every day now, and he says he's not going to talk about it until something comes from the NFL. He missed practice on Saturday with a back issue. He's back today. So from that standpoint, he's healthy enough to practice again. But ever since the news came down, he's been playing with the second team. So the Eagles are preparing like he's not going to be there week one.
He said the B samples. He said the B samples getting tested this week. They should have some resolve.
Yeah, I mean, the B sample when it originally came down and originally leaked, it was just the A sample that tested positive, and the B was still out there. At that particular time, Lane said it would take a couple weeks, but he was not very confident, and he shouldn't be.
No, but there could have been a possibility. Could there have been a possibility that if that took long, plus an appeal, that maybe he plays a game or two?
Yeah, it is, and that's the thing. That's the timing. But you can tell by what the Eagles are doing and how they're preparing. They don't believe that's going to happen.
Okay.
They don't believe they're going to have him week one. Appeals in the NFL are heard once a month, so it depends.
Unless you're Tom Brady,
the sample comes in, where you are on the calendar. And, yeah, he could be active for a game or two. But I think the Eagles kind of understand, look, if they have him, great. But if they don't, and they don't think they're going to, they have to prepare for it, and that's what they're doing. Lane's a good enough player that he doesn't need reps with the first team to be ready. He dominated in Pittsburgh against the second-team players, as he should have, because he's too good to be playing with that group. And that's the way they're going about it. But it's evident by all sides. The Eagles and Lane himself, they don't think anything good is going to happen. So at some point, he's going to be gone for 10 games.
Last one for John McMullen. Doug Peterson said Carson Wentz is sore, rushing him. Not rushing him, but were they trying to kind of get him to do some things, even though he couldn't play in games? And, would you consider that a setback or not really? I mean, where do you see Wentz right now?
No, I mean, he talked before practice today. He was just a little bit sore. It's interesting because Doug talks first, and then they opened the locker room, and Doug said Carson wasn't going to throw today, and then we went in the locker room, and he said he was going to give it a try. So he's sore. It's a broken rib. Anybody who's ever had a broken rib, it basically hurts to do anything, walk, breathe. And I don't know if it was a setback as much as the team was willing to give him a rest, and then when we went out at practice at 1:30, Carson was out there tossing the football around very lightly. Obviously, he's not ready to go, but he did try to throw. So at this stage, it's a pain tolerance thing. He claims the goal is still to be back for week 4 in the preseason, but I've said from the start, I think that goal is awfully optimistic. I don't think we're going to see him the rest of the preseason.
All right, John McMullen, 97.3 ESPN.com, at JF McMullen. Quick update, too. Jordan Matthews will most likely be ready for week 1, as I understand it?
Yeah, he said no questions about that. The Eagles' hope was that he would be able to play in the dress rehearsal game against the Colts. That looks less and less likely like it's going to happen. So we're not going to see Jordan till week 1. But he claims there's no question he'll be there, and we'll see how it shakes out because they definitely need him. I mean, this receiving group is bad with him. It's really bad without him.
Maybe they're hiding some things. They just don't want to show any of us.
Well, everybody hides things in the preseason. There's no question about that. And you've seen Dak Prescott in Dallas going nuts, playing against vanilla defenses. And remember, week 3 of the preseason last year was the Green Bay game, and Sam Bradford looked like the second coming, and everybody thought the Eagles were going to be 16-0. So it's not really important to have a ton of success in the preseason, but it is nice. I mean, it would be nice to see this offense move the football just to give them some confidence.
Yeah. All right. Looking forward to the year, pal. I'm off next week, but I'll cherish this week together with you.
I cherish it, too.
Take care.
And back to Josh. Now I wish I hadn't insulted Josh. I didn't know you weren't going to be there next week.
No. Well, you can save him for next week when he's back on here. You can.
I love you both, as I said to Josh.
Take care, pal.
All right, bye.